All right, let's get after it. Daily trading recap for the 24th of September here, 2021. Nice little Friday to close off the week. I will always take a green day no matter what. I had two tickers that I found some nice little opportunities in, didn't really trade them to the best of my ability, what I think I should have done. Maybe done a little bit more prep work beforehand, but that's all learning. That's all hindsight, intuition that's building on for the next trading days to come in this career. Otherwise, on SPY, some other housekeeping to get into. 0.1 per 6 update on SPY itself. A little bit of a lackluster volume day for what is a Friday. Coming back off of this nice little dip that we found starting off the week Monday. So I think this is a 2% move from where we closed on that Monday. Crazy to see that if you just went long at the start of the week, where you ended up at the end of the week here. Market dollar volume around the horn. Let's pull this up here quick. NASDAQ, pretty abysmal dollar volume, especially for a Friday. $25 billion volume. $25 billion under that $200 billion kind of average mark we've been seeing for quite a little while. We're over an hour and a half after market close as well, too. So we've accumulated nice little after hours to pad that up a little bit. $237 billion volume on the NYSE, and OTC markets $2.1 billion volume. Interesting to see on the NASDAQ and those small cappers that just wasn't there today. So, but other than that, like I mentioned, I had those two nice charts I went after today too. Doing a lot better. I journaled this down too, and I think I'm going to mention this in my monthly recap that I feel as though I have been taking a lot more substantial trades based on actual prep work going into them and not just trying to chase whatever the biggest percentage mover is on the morning. Doing a lot more work or chart reading after market hours, just everything, eliminating the distractions from the outside and keeping my mindset focused on what the chart is and reading it rather than just kind of screwing myself over, getting lucky a few times, screwing myself over the next few times, death by 1,000 paper cuts. I think just little by little, I'm starting to chip away at who I am as a trader and the type of charts that I like to see and reading the charts overall. And those reading the tea leaves, I think it's obviously the biggest factor in predicting the future, because that's what we're doing, is trying to predict the future of what is to happen potentially in order to make money. That's the whole entire goal. That's all my intro. Let's get into the charts on ZIVO to start us off. Another big percentage mover today. It looked like crazy for a news catalyst. I didn't see anything showing up on my scans chart here, especially for this when it ran last Monday at the start of the week too. Again, when that was the super hard red gap down market day. Still crazy percentage move to the upside. Had that little pullback and then perk. Later, we found out, I think I was reminded of this too by the small cap recap when they were just kind of randomly looking into the filings. This thing had a $125 million registered aggregate offering that could ultimately, they could shoot these things out at any time, but it would only add up to $125 million at the end of that offering period. So then that was factored in on that small cap recap of, that's why this held. It was just putting in a lower highs and just continuing to fade off. Why it didn't have any continuation after that dip and rip or any of this little consolidation fake outiness on that Monday, and that's why it faded. And the reality, we come here again today too, same type of thing where we get this perk, consolidation, the pre-market does whatever. This time, right at the open, it kind of fades. So now from that point, I'm looking for the dip and rip because it didn't have the spike to the upside, where then I'd be looking for, hey, is it going to base anytime, whatever, or in my mindset too, coming in beforehand, and I was factoring like the Jack number 2, number 7, his alter ego of, hey, potentially trying to short into any of those spikes, paper trade. I wasn't going to actually take a position in that. I'm still just learning that style of trading. If it was going to spike immediately to the upside, saying, hey, risking potentially this pre-market high, risking potentially any of these highs from that day as a base technical level, easy distinguisher to say this could easily just run there and pull back again. Today, I didn't really factor in what happened on that Monday. I didn't think of it until I was completely out of these trades today too, but it was the same thing that we saw. Just this, something is just holding this thing down and formed a nice little dip and rip opportunity. Of course, I traded this thing on the tick type of chart, the tick volume chart. Really, really awesome base here. Straight into that 9:45 time frame. Perfect little entry opportunity. I've been scorned by these things so many times that they just produce that nice looking entry opportunity and then just dump and pull the rug to the downside. So just ready for that as well too. Both of these entries and exits were 100 shares each, not slam dunk position size, which I have to factor in as well too, and give myself a knock on the cheek to say, hey, maybe when you're more confident and when it's showing really great signs like this, maybe you can step your position size up. But I also had to factor into talking about this first trade here, this stupid loss of, it wasn't really stupid, but telling by how well it was consolidating here, this is just putting in a lot of trading rage at this point. Thinking maybe it could have a little bit more room, just quick leg to the upside, spike to a new market hours high a day, touches $7 whole level. That was the basis for that trade, not necessarily looking at it as a dip and rip, but just potentially golly, that's been holding this range for a long, long time. And this is what the tick chart type of shows, is how many trades are going off at this specific range. You can do that a little bit from the volume profile, but it's really not that easy to see or easily distinguishable. Let me see if I can just pull it up. Yeah, so even looking at it on a 1 minute, you can kind of see through these wicks if you're reading between the lines to say, oh, okay, yeah, it's holding a little bit of higher lows, it's holding this range here, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the type of range and the amount of trades that are going off at this specific price point in time that just doesn't show on the 1 minute count. So that's exactly what I was trading. That's the reason why I traded on this chart, looking for that quick reversal after whatever this little dump off was before that. Put a stop right at that low day and got a super slippy fill. 363 I got. Absolutely insane percentage move slippage I got on there. And yeah, that's my fault too. Maybe I should have been reading the tea leaves like I mentioned before and gotten myself out a little bit sooner. And maybe I get faked out and risk, but it's getting faked out and trying to get back in again if it starts moving to the upside is a far better solution than the amount of slippage that I took in that one. I was obviously way, way, way behind in the line to get filled on that stop. Obviously, a lot of other longs were in that position as well, but it's whatever. So I think that I'm just making a whole lot of circles in what I talked to. I think that little experience was keeping me in check to say, hey, don't go full position size once again. I've strayed away from what I talked about a while ago of keeping myself to that $500 intraday ticker cash limit, where I would only be allowed to trade $500 worth of cash on a single ticker per day. And I think I was doing that for myself too, just to stop that, what I mentioned in the intro of not those chasey trades. When I do those chasey trades over and over and over again, that's when I get to the emotional state. And those trades are so worthless anyway. They weren't based on any amount of substance, and they were just so fake and crap and bad for my psyche as a trader. But I think with these more substantial and evidence-based, value-based trades, I can totally define that. So I've worked myself out of that little temporary rule I set for myself a little bit, but still maintaining the fact that, hey, I've taken a little bit of a loss here. It was, minimal, a $26 loss, I think that was for my 100 shares, if I'm remembering correctly. So nothing absolutely world or life changing, but still the fact too of like, there was some slippage, it takes that little bit of nudge of off kilterness to say, okay, now I got to right myself. Don't think I can go full position size 100%. Again, make sure that if you're trying to get back into this thing, that it is a true defined knock you off your socks. You have to be in this thing type of pattern to show you a dip and rip. And it certainly was. And I think this type of price action is definitely the dip and rip action you want to see coming to the upside, where it's just that nice, slow, continual grind. It's not a hard peak. It's not like shorts are jumping in here and they're getting squeezed. And then that's where the fake outs come in even more, because when it's a quick squeeze to that VWAP point, then pretty much everybody who's already short is just already out. As it gets to the final point of VWAP, where there should have been more shorts, more bag shorts, taking way more losses, whether they got in from the entry point or whether they were trying to get in on the fading dip. The FOMO shorters still shorting down here at this point, that they're even further away from their entry price, and then it's getting shoved with strength beyond that VWAP point of inflection. That is the dip and rip pattern that we're looking for. And this is that slow, continual, nice grind. A little bit harder for me to hold as a long, but it was a reminder too that this is, that kind of little slow, just tiny little Chinese water torture bleeding to put on the shorts as you get closer and closer to that level, that their fingers getting a little tighter and tighter on that button, and you eventually get that explosion to the upside. I was surprised to see this thing didn't go over 7, but I think like we mentioned, like I mentioned, there was just some powers that be that is holding this thing down. And I certainly placed myself in the frame of mind to say, okay, I'm looking to 100% take off half of my position at 10%, which would have been that 6 aim point. Had a nice limit order that got ran into to show more strength to the upside. And was surprised to see, yes, that we didn't tap that $7 whole level, just quickly peeled back underneath the VWAP. And at that point, I've seen this thing Now the fact that this thing has died off so many times, failed to break the $7 whole level, was a little bit even toppier here in the pre-market. And then at this point too, now I started to reflect, oh, I remember on that Monday now that it was pretty toppy as well. It was at that point that I said, okay, 6.5 is really failing to hold on the bid here. I think I'm going to take off the rest of my 50 shares at that point too and just lock in profits as they were there. Let it do whatever it wants to do. If it consolidates here and just does its little choppiness basis, if it broke up to $7 here and above from there, I mean, hats off to you if you were holding for that long. I think if I didn't take this earlier trade and I was just so set and ready in my ways and I wasn't looking at other tickers for my situation myself, where I have to really focus on one ticker and not have that many distractions coming in the brain, maybe I could have seen myself holding this thing a little bit longer to a position like this where from this point that we get the break to the upside of $7 and beyond. But that didn't happen. It broke down even further from there. So decent little sell at that point for the 6.5 last exit of that trade, and that was pretty much my day of $16 positive that I ended up with a nice little percentage move to the upside on that one, of course. And that's another point again too. I think I mentioned this in the intro. Always making circles. That's what I do. This is what I gotta be, and I gotta start nailing and sizing up more, looking for the slam dunks, not just trying to limit myself based on how I feel about the conviction of the trade, but saying, what am I trying to say? I need to be making more on the trades that work, right? I need to be making more on the winners and losing less on the losers, in a sense. And in hindsight, of course, it's always going to be easier to say, man, I should have sized up way more for the winner, for the dip and rip type of trade. But it's in the same light, I also was pretty convicted in this little trading range I was holding that we would see another perk to the upside. So in the exact moment itself, in the market hours, it's a totally different game than trying to look back at it during review, during these little video points here that say like, oh, you should have taken a smaller scalpier size position because of the lesser probability that would have happened. But I had the conviction when it was there, and I've got to act on it as it's there, and I can't double guess myself when I'm boots on the ground in the trenches with it. So great little trade on that one. Nice dip and rip opportunities. A shame to see that it didn't have the power to continue on with whatever powers that be were behind it, but that was a great opportunity on the day for perfect dip and rip entry. MRIN was the next one. I had this thing on watch for kind of third day surge style of play. It is a low floater former runner, super 9.8 million floater. No news, catalyst, or really reason for the initial run up anyway for this big day on the 22nd here. Of course, I don't see any news still. I was kind of dissuaded and I lost conviction in this trade because of what it did in the after hours yesterday, because of how it closed, the strength it showed there, and then it just kind of faded. Didn't look like it was weak, didn't look like it was done, but it was just like, oh, well, shoot. That's really what I was looking for, is that strong, quick move to the upside, squeezing shorts for this third day surge type of pattern. So I lost a lot of conviction in this one. Still kept it on watch, and it's low floater from a runner. Still got to respect that. But the position size, little toggle switch in my head kind of fell off. The conviction toggle in my head fell off on this one. And my trade totally reflected that too. This was just an abysmal trade for what this chart did the whole rest of the day too. We got this nice little spike. Does whatever out of the morning, the first few minutes. You get that spike to pretty much right above this red, green. We're above the closing price, obviously. But then this little perking area here, this like 867, it's just kind of holding this range. So then I'm looking anywhere to say, okay, is volume coming to step in to push this thing higher? I get top tick, of course, immediately, like I normally do for that entry point. Get faked out for what the fake bid stepping up that was. I forget my position size on this one. This was a 50 share trade in itself too, so $300, $400 position size on that one, and got top ticked. And the conviction in me for this trade was I wanted to see it continue to move away from price quickly. I wanted that absolute quick move to the upside, looking from what it did in the after hours. Of course, that move was after hours, and that's totally different from how it's supposed to or normally can trade during market hours for how quick that move was. The move to the downside of what it did on that morning from the first run-up day, just of how quickly it was reaching those price levels. That's what I wanted to see from my entry points, how it was moving away for this third day surge type of pattern. And it was just kind of failing. And it was breaking that point for me in this trade. And I thought, okay, just screw it. I don't see the volume there. I don't have to see this thing again, like I mentioned, I lost the conviction in the trade beforehand of what it did in the after hours. I was like, yeah, I'm totally out of this one. It's got to be done. But it held the bottom of that candle really well. And then, of course, it shot to a new high day. And then consolidate a little more. You get a huge slap down candle here at this point. Consolidates a little more on volume. Then pushes to another higher. And then holds VWAP well. Continues to hold and strike. Then you get another new high day attempt. And just continues to grind and grind and grind. Jack number 2, I think, started his short pretty soon on, basing his risk off of 9.5 and then that $10 hold level that he risked his short off of. And he got stopped out of this one. And that $10 hold level volume candle surge is absolutely insane to look at it in that perspective too. When it happened live, just the absolute poof, 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 how quickly it was climbing through the price action. So you can obviously see that whole dollar level area was a huge level of resistance, level of interaction with other retail traders, whoever it was, whatever algorithms that was effect on this one. And man, I just held myself back to not the FOMO of to chase this thing up to the long side, which funny enough, Jack number 2 mentioned that this thing was that short sale restriction, or it's tough to say what the reason for this run up was. But in his frame of mind too, it was like, it's just not moving so rapidly. It's not like it's just squeezing or the bid is stepping up each and every single time. So it's not like shorts are getting squeezed out of this one. It's just potentially longs, FOMO longs, just continually smacking the bid, looking to say, oh, it's a 3rd day surge, former runner, could be really nice. And that's why this thing just continued to push and push and push and finally hit that lever where enough shorts were squeezed out to the upside to continue this thing pushing higher. I drew a little trend line as well later in the day too. If I was holding this thing from my initial entry with a bigger position size, scaling out along the way, that $10 level probably would have taken away a lot of my positions for what I would have sold into that type of strength too. But even, you can draw this little trend line here and you can continue it on, a little bit more angled off of the opening price. But kind of judging it based off of that too for when you wanted to cut it, for giving it enough room to continue to go onto the upside for however far it wanted to go, but then saying, hey, now it's kind of pulling back harder off of that trend line, put in a decent little volume candle to break underneath that, and then rides closer back to VWAP. So that would have been a good exit signal in that regard for just the upside on what it moved for the morning session on that solid trade. And then what it does in the afternoon is just whatever, in my opinion. But that was a great opportunity on that one. So many fake outs, yeah, like I said, I was just looking for that hard and expecting and waiting for that hard continuous push to the upside, and it just didn't happen. Even at 9.5, see here, I wrote down specifically, when I moved to the upside, you get the 9.5 break here in this candle, but then you get a failed breakout once again. It comes back down to 9.4, but then it gets bought up, and then you get another sell-off again too, and it breaks back underneath that 9.5. So it's just choppy, not holding $half level well, but $10 level will hold well on that one. That was a great one to be a part of. Great trade to see. The thesis was there coming into the day of absolutely that trade plan worked out of, whatever the cause of it was, certainly happened, and we were heading in the right direction. It's just the matter in which we traded it. So ended up taking a super small loss for what should have been a pretty nice percentage move P&L trade on that one for MRIN. That's all the tickers I wanted to mention as of right now. Just talk about some other ones that I looking at over the weekend here. NAKD up on the scanner in the morning, not really a high percentage move in the morning, but then just kind of grinding away, chopping away, squeezing some shorts here. Touched perfectly that 75-cent mark and then kind of peeled back, messed around with VWAP. I think Mark Crook was getting long here looking for a VWAP hold style trade, and then it just broke that off. But now holding decently well at that 72 mark. I'm going to look at this one potentially over the next few days, not necessarily next Monday, but essentially basing the trade off of if we get any amount of little fake breakouts in this type of cup pattern, that if we get some more volume days coming in, we start to maybe fake out a little bit above the high of 77 on this candle here on that day. Get a few fake outs in there, attract some more volume. This is a huge, awesome former runner, of course, from that start of this year, January 27, 28, 29, for what it did. Has the potential to do a little bit. Of course, I'm not going to say it's going to do the exact same thing again for the type of market that we're in compared to what this type of market it was during that time. But I will certainly keep an eye on it in the next few days here if we get some nice technical levels to base off of a potential red to green reversal or breakout opportunity after it does some fake out attempts along the way too, is what my prediction is going to be for that one. ILUS and TGGI in the OTC sector. ILUS had the breakout today, which a lot of guys were trading for. Huddy getting some nice dollar volume position size in on this one during this little consolidation above VWAP, riding it to a barely little tap, just new high day here, all-time high, and then we get a hard peel off though into the close here. So ILUS and TGGI could show the panic going into Monday for how they sold off today. Something's on my neck. TGGI, same thing. Awesome little breakout here. Daily looks nice as well for what it did in the morning session. Of it was, you get the immediate spike above that high day that it holds, and hard, conviction for me to say as it's holding here, as it's still curling, to potentially buy it here as it's still in a new breakout trend, to say how much more room could this thing have. But in hindsight, of course, it's 2020. Buying any of this consolidation, if it's holding well, keeping a tight little risk level, say if it's going to peel back, or even risking VWAP on this one. If it breaks VWAP, then I know definitely it's done. There's certainly a lot more room on the upside of this one. And then same thing like ILUS, just hard sell-off for some reason into the close. Could see some more panic going into Monday trading day. That will be exciting to see if either of these things want to panic hard and offer a nice panic dip buy attempt. That would be a nice treat that we've not seen in a long time. Any pure type of panic dip buy. PALT was another ticker that popped up on the scanner. Not like the most awesome or insane. It's a American software company. Super low float, 4.3 million. I don't see any news catalysts as of right now for why this thing is running, but just the daily is super crap and sketchy, and it's putting in this crazy volume day for some reason. Yeah, it's showing me, let's see what the actual dollar volume. Yeah, like we're just under $20 million volume on the day at, whatever volume that is. So for some reason, it's spiking pretty hard. Nothing. And of course, now it's peeling back to VWAP, of course, as I say that too. But man, if it starts to get more volume for some reason, I will absolutely trade that volatility. If any patterns technically come out on this one, I could see this thing just also fading back down to just nothingness as well. But I'll keep my eye on it just for education's sake, Man, that is all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will get some well-needed rest over the weekend here. Sleep until about, I'll say 1 o'clock. Get my 14 hours of sleep a night. That math works out well. I literally will sleep 12 hours tonight, 100%. My body just always does that on the weekends. I desperately need that sleep, so that'll be exciting. Most people normally look for the weekends to go absolutely party and not sleep, where I look at the weekends as, thank you, more sleep. So I will be looking forward to that. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys next time.